So we just talked about the two movement assessments, and concluding the second movement assessment, we talked about the importance of glute strength and turning on the glutes relative to controlling the knee or upregulating the glutes a little bit. So let me show you two strength tests that you can do to first look at somebody's symmetry of strength in their glutes. Either one of these tests you could utilize, it just depends on what fits for them. And then these tests can then become the exercises on top of all the integrated movements that I showed you in the DVD. These are more isolated to the glutes, and I would also utilize the other exercises I showed you, like all the deadlift variations and the hybrid combination lower body movements, to really incorporate a fully comprehensive lower body and glute strengthening routine. So this one's first called the Super Dog. You may have seen this in some other videos. I've popularized this exercise. Basically what I'm going to do here is take your rib to your thigh, elbows down, and then all I want to see them do is lift the leg up without leaning forward. So I always want to see that they can keep contact here and lift the leg up. What that does is it eliminates the lower back from extending the hip, and it forces the glutes to extend the hip. So we want to have them hold it up there for about 10 seconds or perform 10 reps. And we want to make sure that they can do that on both sides. And a common question I get is, should I have toe up, show you this way, should I have toe up or toe down? Toe down is actually going to make it tougher because you're sitting back even further. And then toe up is a little bit more kind of a natural position. If you can do it, I like toe up. Now, some people's knee, if they have maybe some degeneration in their knee, they don't like this fully compacted position like that. So what you can do is you take another pad and you can stick it right here, and that gives them a little bit of leeway and a little bit more comfort, and they can try that. So let's say they can't do this. Let's say not because of a knee limitation, but because let's say they can't lift their right leg up, or they can't lift their left, or they can't lift both. So whether you find an asymmetry or both legs are equally weak, what you can do is take them over to a bench, and grab the bench and pull it in. Get them on the bench or a chair. Assume the same position. See, now I have more range of motion, and then have them lift from there. And they can do isometric holds, or they can do dynamic lifts. It's a good idea to mix those up. So that's the way to build in the ability to do the Super Dog. If they cannot, if their knees won't allow them to get in that heel to butt position due to arthritic change or whatever, then let me show you another exercise that I learned from a great cook. Call it the Cook Hip Lift. Basically what you're going to do is assume like you're getting ready to do sit-ups or crunches. Take a tennis ball, put it directly underneath your rib cage, not in your hip, directly underneath your rib cage. Pull that thigh in, so now it's squeezing the tennis ball to your rib. Now try to maintain that position there and do a hip bridge. Now if the tennis ball falls out, like I allowed it to there, you might not be extending your hips from your glutes like you're supposed to. You may be extending from your lumbar spine. If I extend from my hip, this position doesn't change. If I extend from my lumbar spine, my pelvis tilts forward and this knee drops down, which takes pressure off the tennis ball. So let's say you find somebody either can't do this on both sides, or one side can do it but the other side cannot. So let's say they can't do it on this side, but they can do it on this side, no problem. And by the way, you want to have their head down. I'm just lifting my head because it's easier to talk. But here on this side, bang, the ball goes. So based on what Great Cook teaches, you start them here, hug it, and then get them doing, again, isometric holds or dynamic repetitions until you start building back in the ability to do that. So again, these are specific targeted exercises to strengthen the glutes. You don't just use these alone, or they don't have to get good at these before they do the more integrated exercises as we showed you throughout this DVD. You want to do both. Use these as active recovery, use them as warm-up, use them as homework, use them as cool-down, call them corrective exercises, call them what you will. You want to do more isolated work to specifically address the weak area and the weak side, and you also want to still do the integrated exercises that we showed you in the video, as long as their form is good. The final strength test I like to use to discover strength symmetry from left to right before I address single leg strength training is a single leg squat test, and we just do it for a maximum amount of repetitions. So the first thing that I'm going to do is make sure, again, that my client can stand on a single leg. So if we've accepted that they can, or if we've qualified them that they can stand on a single leg, we're going to go to the single leg knee tap squat, which I explained in the beginning of this DVD. Let's do a quick review. Stand in front of a stack of pads or a step, something like that, and have them drop their knee back to it in return. Now, I want to find the lowest height that they can successfully achieve on one side. Then I want to make sure I can match that on the other side. So if I can't match heights, meaning let's say I need 2 pads on my right leg, right? 2 pads on my right leg, but I can get down to the floor with my left leg. Well, as long as the restriction isn't pain related, then I know that I want to focus on increasing some strength on my right side, because if you increase strength, normally range of motion comes, because your body likes to give range of motion after it can control the motion, and strength is control. So you can also incorporate some mobility exercises as well, which we talked about in our MAPS DVD that was all about mobility activation paired sets. So that's how we would address that. We would basically always try to focus on increasing the range of motion and matching up the side that is a little less mobile by focusing on doing more repetitions and maybe adding a little more strength. Let's say we find that the depth of the squat is symmetrical. So now we're going to look at maximum repetitions. So basically I want to say, okay, whether we're using 1 pad or 2 pads, let's say we're going to use 1 pad. How many reps can you do on your left leg? Just body weight. So I'm looking for good quality reps. So let's say they can do 15 reps on their left leg. Then I get them on their right leg. I'm going to let them rest about 3 to 5 minutes, because I want to make sure fatigue doesn't have anything to do with their outcome. So I get them on the right leg and say, okay, do the same thing. And we have them do max reps. Now, as long as they're within 10 to 15% of what they did on their leg, whether it be less or more, so I would say if they did 15 on their left leg, as long as they're in, within 2 or 3 reps, I'm cool with that, because the body is slightly imbalanced by nature and by design. That's why you write with your right hand, or you throw with your right hand or left hand, whatever. But if there's a significant difference, let's say I can only do 8 on my right leg, but I do 15 on my left leg, then I know I have a major strength imbalance there that needs to be addressed. The solution to that we found is this. We're going to start every set with the weak side. We're going to let the weak side do as many reps as it can do, and then we're only going to match the number of reps on the weak side with the strong side. So even though the strong side can do 15 reps, and this side can only do 8, we're always going to do 8 reps with our strong side. And we're going to always force this side to start and finish the set. So I might do 3 sets on this side, but only 2 sets on this side. So after several weeks, 4, 6, 8 weeks or so, with that unbalanced approach to an unbalanced problem, it starts to bring balance back. We force the weak side to do more, the strong side to do slightly less, and things start to come back into balance. But don't get too caught up in the balance. Like I said, a 10 to 15% difference is tolerable. The last final point I want to make here is if they don't have the balance to complete the full single leg squat, then what we're going to do here is do a rear foot elevated version. And it's your choice whether you want to go a higher foot or a lower foot. It's personal preference. And if they can touch the knee, you want to make sure they have symmetry on both legs, and then you go for repetitions. Same method applies. You want to make sure that they can symmetrically go the same depth, and they can also get within 10 to 15% of the same repetitions. If they're weaker on one side, that's the side that you focus on.